Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by the Adam Meakin, 10th Man, father of a stolen child, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Hey, hey.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you all. Heard a voice I hadn't heard before.
Thank
Ariel,
you.
is that you? Nice to have you.
It's me. Thank
Good to
you.
have you. Also, shout out to Big Bear for joining as a lion. Rawr. Good to have you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for the support. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not without R.
Not without
Well, if the Earth had,
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if the Earth had a radius, it should be visible.
So if we had an R value, that would imply that we were on a sphere, and if we were on a sphere, there'd be a geometric limitation to our view, as asserted in the Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve Calculator based on R. Also, to acquire that R value, you would be deriving it by way of the physical geometric sphere edge horizon and a tangent point to it, so that you can take a dip angle measurement from a 90-degree point that you're going to assume is taken from a zenith on a sphere. So you can't get R, because they're currently telling us how refracted it is and how it's beyond the geometric limitations of a sphere with a radius of 3959. So without R, you don't have, and we don't see, a geometric horizon, therefore we're not on a sphere.
They said that the R equals to 8 inches per mile squared because they're stuck on their 3959 has to be based on that. So do we observe 8 inches per mile squared of curvature?
No. When it's surveyed flat.
Yeah, and then they take geometric considerations after that.
Right. So in the pre-show, we were saying, or 10th asked me if I was going to do a video about all of the things I discussed with David Weiss recently that die because R's dead. I said, it'll come up organically, but you'll see from the theme of this housekeeping session what we're talking about. So let's move on. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Not without R.
No center without a radius.
That's a couple of layers deep as far as presuppositions go, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed it is. It's got a whole backstory to it. Story of Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow, and the debris coalescing to form our moon. Yeah, they got a whole load of bullshit that goes along with it. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No,
Hello,
there's
guys.
no evidence for gravity.
Gravity? What is that?
It's an idea.
Both mathematical descriptions rely on a radius value.
Oh, so not without R. How is R required for gravity, John?
M2 and Newtonian, the center of M2, and then mass 1 in Einsteinian.
So without the R value, no gravity. bummer.
Yep.
Oh dear, fundies, this is looking bad. What about axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? That's just a claim we spin. Surely that doesn't need R.
Axial rotation of what?
Earth-based variety?
Of a what, though? Of a ball.
What kind of
A
Earth?
ball needs an R.
I'm not going to say that.
What?
Ball needs an R, but how do we know it's a ball if we don't have an R?
Oh no, you're not saying that without the R value we've got no evidence of axial rotation, are you? Oh no.
I think that's a bit of a problem, yes. Good morning, people, by the way.
Hey, Chocolate.
You would still need the R to prove it, even if you were able to prove it was rotating. You'd still need an R to prove it's a ball rotating.
So what
Yeah,
causes curvature?
What does the what? Back off your mic a little bit so we can hear you a bit clearer.
Yeah, what causes it? What's the cause of curvature?
What's the cause of it? It's not really a causal
Yeah.
thing, is it? More of a
It's it's gravity, isn't it? I'm joking.
Curvature's a concrete noun. Something having curvature isn't really a phenomena. It's not something causal that you're going to ascribe to it. You can ascribe a causal relationship to things appearing to have the bottoms of themselves cut off in the distance when they reach and breach diffraction limits, or obscured by things in the near foreground. That would be a causal relationship that is, in fact, ascribed to Earth curve edge horizons getting in the way. That's where the causal comes in. But of course, if you're going to assert that, which isn't me asserting it for anybody who wants to come along and tell me you and your curvature's debunked. Anyway, when you're going to assert that, that becomes a causal relationship, which falls into the remit of science. Hence, when they suggest that we've got a cause and effect relationship, we ask them for science, because that's what science deals with. But curvature itself is a concrete noun.
Do you think he meant the gases are curved because they say gravity and the atmosphere?
Well, but not just the gases, though, right? Like in their fantasy story, it's a ball because of gravity, right?
No, it's
But
not. That's wrong. That's anti-flat Earth rhetoric that you're claiming there. That is not the case. That's not ball
It's
rhetoric. No,
anti-flat Earth.
anti-flat Earth. We've got to
It's
start
not their
distinguishing.
gravitational accretion story.
The gravitational accretion stories, Einsteinian gravitation, yes.
Yeah, that's why it's a ball, because of gravity. Whatever that is.
Okay, well, let me ask the next question then. Any evidence that we can have atmospheric pressure without a container?
The spheric part is a problem.
No, you
What
don't need a
space?
container for an atmosphere.
Say again, skeptical?
Why is space?
Space is a second law of thermodynamics violation.
You don't need a container for an atmosphere. It's not
And how do we prove
incorporated
that?
in the
'Cause
model.
we have an atmosphere.
Hold on, just let Alwyn
No, the
repeat
second
himself.
law doesn't apply to atmosphere. You don't need a container for it.
That's correct. Did you all hear what Alwyn just said?
Now that's fully approved rhetoric.
Yeah.
That's the right rhetoric. The correct rhetoric is atmosphere. Yeah? Sphere-shaped air. Well, the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to sphere-shaped air. That's what they would say in defense of that. That's the rhetoric. Doesn't apply.
You can say it and be true, can't you? Even though you're a lying scumbag as you say it, but technically what you're saying is true because, yeah, it doesn't apply to atmosphere because it doesn't exist.
Somebody in Discord's got their mic open, causing a load of chaos, by the way. Whoever that is, please can you mute? Unless you've got something to say. Does someone want to add something from Discord? No, clearly not. Yeah, in essence, if you've got something that is only applicable in the model, like atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, you can simply say that that part of the model doesn't have a certain law applied to it. A law of nature doesn't apply to atmosphere. Just doesn't apply. Well, doesn't apply is a way of saying stands in violation of. But we don't live on the model. So it's perfectly acceptable for a model to not have a natural law applied to it. It's a model. Heliocentric model. The whys and wherefores of what happens in physical reality is irrelevant. It's a model. So
Right.
having atmosphere...
Natural laws don't apply to models.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
atmosphere,
but
sphere
then
shape there.
that's make believe though.
We're gonna need an R
You got
value
it.
for. We're gonna need an R value just to keeping with the theme that we've got going. Hello.
Oops, yeah, Nathan. Okay, yeah. You can't, if you're going to presuppose that the air bends, the rate of bend would be determined by R. We don't have R.
That's correct.
And the layering that's in atmospheric law depends on a force acting upon that air. So we don't have a force anymore. It's
That force would be determined by R, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, I'm going to forego asking for evidence of R for obvious reasons, but any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Oh, too easy.
Oh no.
We
Don't
don't
you need
even
R
know
for
what
that
it
too?
is.
Hold on, chocolate. Say again, Rams.
We don't even know what the sun is.
No, but it's claimed to have a distance to it, and it kind of depends on R. I was hoping we'd get there a bit quicker.
We'd need to know the
You need
R
R for that.
so that we could then presuppose that Venus is a ball the same as us and has the same R as us, and from there we could calculate the
See,
distance to the
that almost makes it fun because you get to presuppose 2 R's
double R.
before making that distance. Look at that. Just upper the stakes, baby.
But it's the same R.
Same R.
Same R,
know
right?
it's
That's
double
what. That's why they call it a twin, right?
That's right. It's got the same R as us. Earth's twin, Venus. Ever wonder why they call it Earth's twin? Well, because Christian Huygens arbitrarily decided that it got the same R value as the presupposed R value of Earth that we've debunked, and subsequently debunked every single housekeeping question asked so far on the show. Shout out to DITRH, that's deep inside the rabbit hole, David Weiss, who had this explained to him by me a couple of days ago. But I thought it was worthy of discussion, as did 10th Man. And it is. It all crumbles because of the black swan. Isn't it beautiful? Something that isn't R value dependent. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
you can't link that one back to R.
No, I
you
said
can
that.
look at stuff and presuppose R's all day. Why not?
I think you can. I think you can. I mean, they could technically do something that wasn't R related, but I think in most of the stuff that they, in a pseudo form, claim as their science, it is linkable to R. Everything, because it's all measured in AUs, which are derivable via R.
Good point. A lot of the astrophysicists' rhetoric is based in R, but I don't think you can say without R you wouldn't have astrophysicists. You know, they might transition into different.
No, but they'd have to change the model, wouldn't they? It would
Yeah.
require a rewriting of what they believe to not include R. It is intrinsically in, like say, via an AU.
Or they just make stuff up like that. You know, when their model actually doesn't work, they make stuff up, extra stuff like dark matter. Why not?
Every star is described as AUs, light years or whatever, yeah? And we define that via R, matching R of Venus to get the AU. So everything they do, every calculation they do is based on R.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that you can't say there won't be astrophysicists without R. There's no geometric horizon without R. There's no model without R. There's no cosmology that is adhered to by astrophysicists without R. But the astrophysicists themselves might continue in name only in a different cosmology without R. So R, in this instance, isn't the death of astrophysicists, only the rhetoric that they punt.
It isn't just the term astrophysics. Wouldn't that be just a reification in itself?
No, you
It's an
can't.
oxymoron.
Not necessarily, only because you don't know. So you're saying astro. I don't need to preface what that means, but physical, right? Well, you're saying, well, no, these things are intangible, therefore, isn't it? But you don't know that they're not, as much as I'm saying that they don't know that they are, and they haven't proven it to any stretch beyond fake journeys to moons that they've apparently walked on through fake mediums. Well, beyond that, there's no assertion being made of physicality or non-physicality. So you can't just say, well, because they're claiming a certain type of physicality and we can disprove that and we can highlight the lack of evidence, doesn't automatically mean that the contrapositive's true. Doesn't automatically mean non-physical. You don't know. I don't know. Do you know those stars aren't physical, Chocolate? Do you know something I don't?
I'd agree with you there, Nathan. You can go as far as to disprove theirs, but not actually make any positive statement yourself as to physicality or intangibility. As well, we can say they're intangible to us at the moment for everything we know, but as for the future, I think you can't make that as a definitive.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of an armed robbery taking place, and the security cameras capture a guy just walking off camera that had just bought something, and then two masked robbers burst in, right? And they get hold of the guy that they can see, and they know his identity. And they pull him into the police station, and they say, "Look, you could be one of these two burglars, right? You could be the burglar." And he says, "No, actually, I've got a cast iron alibi because 3 people picked me up just off frame, and here they all are giving me an alibi." And they turn around and say, "Well, unless you can tell me who the 2 masked robbers are, you're not off the hook just yet." And he goes, "I've got nothing to do with it." He's like, "Yeah, but there's definitely something happened, and the fact that you've now disproved your involvement doesn't mean you're off the hook. You've got to now prove who did actually do it." Likewise, well, there's a positive assertion that there's a sky vacuum. Yeah, that's violation of natural law. We'd all be dead. The gas would have filled it. Well, okay, what is the sky? I don't know. I haven't made any claims about it. But I know what it isn't, and I know where they're talking nonsense. No, you're not allowed to debunk my sky vacuum until you give me an alternative solution. I don't have that, I'm afraid. I just know it's not a vacuum. No, that's not acceptable. Right, well, that's not my problem, I'm afraid. I don't know what the sky is. I know it's not a vacuum, and that kind of craps all over your religion of a sky vacuum, and that's where it ends. Do I now need to give you anything? No, just walk away.
Wait a second, I got an issue here. Because when I was
Also say-
saying months ago about getting to the moon, I got hammered, and now you're telling me that Adam says we don't know, maybe someday we can get to the stars to see if they're physical, and nobody gets on him?
No, that's not what I said
No,
either.
that's not what I said.
No, that is not what I said. I did not say, quoting Neil, someday you might get to them. I did not say that. I said,
Adam
This goes to
said-
what I was gonna
hello,
say,
hello.
actually.
Can I just clarify for Neil? What I said was, you don't know that they're not physical. So if you were to come and claim that they are intangible, yeah? Now, by a standard I can physically adhere to, I know from my perspective right now that they are intangible to me. Does that mean that you are never going to actually get to touch them? I don't know. Maybe. It was believable enough for people to be lied about going to the moon and them standing on it and nod along and go, yeah, that makes sense, that you could stand on that light in the sky. And everyone went, yeah, all right. Well, I'm not saying that makes that true, but I'm just saying that it's in the mind's eye of basically the entirety of the Western world. So it's not a push or a stretch to say, well, yeah, it's not implausible to believe that, yeah, just because this is a useful example of the fallacy. Just because it's got fallacious reasoning behind the assertion that it is physical, and you can debunk their assertion of physicality by way of their fallacious reasoning, to assert that it's therefore not physical is a fallacy. Yeah? To disprove something. Likewise, I was watching the behaviour panel yesterday, and one of the guys, Mark Bolan, used denying the antecedent formal logical fallacy to disprove unicorns. It's where it gets interesting. So in the comments, I pointed out, as an example of, quote, good logic, Mark used a denying the antecedent formal logical fallacy, and then I put a link to Google to explain the fallacy. Yeah? And then explained how you could actually prove or disprove things. However, in so doing, I also had to then point out that if I went on to say, because Marx used a formal logical fallacy, denying the antecedent, to disprove the existence of unicorns, I could now turn around and say, because he's used a fallacy, unicorns are real. That's the fallacy. Just because he's used a fallacy to disprove the existence of unicorns doesn't automatically make unicorns real because he's used a fallacy. That's the fallacy. Everyone following along?
Well,
I
one
knew
of the hardest.
unicorns were real.
Pardon?
Isn't it
One of the-
also
One of the,
a logical fallacy to appeal to future discoveries or appeal to the future?
Yeah, it's appeal to the future fallacy. That's correct. Off on a slight tangent from my point. If I've done an appeal to the future fallacy, we'll cover that in a minute. Shout out to Godzilla37. If you bought your child a model plane and the model was broken, to stop their crying, you'd have to replace their model. Remind you of anyone? yeah, exactly. You broke my ball. You gotta give me another ball or a different equivalent toy.
Anyway, I said months ago that I believe that I believe that there's the firmament, and I believe there's a dome over us, and the stars, the moon, and the sun are inside of it, and I believe that we could get there. And you told me no. Space is fake.
No, I've said you've got a belief and you've not provided any evidence for it. So what am I supposed to say? Oh, well, that's an acceptable standard. No, it doesn't disprove that it's not true either. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to assert that disproving someone's positive assertion, A, doesn't need a response that gives a positive assertion to fill in the gap that you've left. That's not required. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you do, and you assert that what they're claiming, in this case physicality, is incorrect and the contrapositive is true, therefore intangibility, therefore you're using the fallacy, because you could be eventually, is where your appeal to the future fallacy comes in, be proven wrong.
Well, it's hard to debunk something that's not been proven to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the basis of who's going to provide the evidence, and the onus falls on the person making the positive claim.
But what I'm saying is, when we ask for, and what's the other housekeeping question with the astrophysicist and all of that? Okay, Owen says not yet, right? So that means not yet, but someday maybe you could get to these stars or wherever's out there and see what they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you appeal to that as being the reason why they are physical, it's an appeal to the future fallacy.
Yeah, Neil, that's the whole point, right? So we ask, is there any viable hypothesis? Just because they haven't been able to formulate a viable hypothesis yet doesn't mean that they can't eventually.
Right, as long as that idea in the future is not going to be based on a physical presumption about them, then who knows what they will figure out. They might figure out how the ways to manipulate the heavenly bodies, and then they could potentially engage in a scientific experiment.
I'm going to find that show where I mentioned it and you just got all over me, and this is the same thing.
What are you moaning about now?
I'm backing
You have to have
I'm
an
backing
argument,
you, Neil.
right?
I'm backing you, Neil. Yes. They
I
could.
know.
Okay. Whatever. Neil's obviously got his panties in a twist over something. I don't really know what.
I'm telling you, because I said it and you got all over me. You know, Neil, space is fake.
I'll try once more. When somebody challenges you to prove something that you've disproved, you don't need to. The burden is on the person making the claim. Now, if you've not made a claim and you're merely taking apart someone's positive assertion, that would be their claim, then there's nothing left to do once that's been done. Once you've taken apart a position based on its fallacy, based on its lack of evidence, based on whatever it is that you're taking it apart within your argument, or response to their claim, more importantly, there's nothing left to do at the end of that process. You don't have to fill in the blanks. You don't have to tell the police who the actual bank robbers were or who the shop robbers were. You don't have to do that. That's not your responsibility. Once you've disproved something, in this case, or by example, your involvement, it's not up to you to prove what actually is the case. That's not your job. And it's not my job to tell people what the sky is.
Let's forget it, because until I find the show and I get exactly what I said and you just got all over me, we're talking past each other. Next.
There is no next. We're just going to dwell on this inevitably, Neil. Indefinitely, rather, not inevitably.
I think the truth in this debate is the realization that you can't prove the Earth is a ball or flat scientifically.
But it's
That's
not.
You
what
can
people
by
need to.
measurements, though.
Well, you can measure it, but it's not a scientific endeavor. It's not. It's
That's
not a
right.
cause and effect question, is it? What shape is the Earth? So what is question?
So what is question?
That's a measurement question.
So, could you ask what caused the Earth to be flat? And then
Caused
test
it to be flat? You could ask the question. Good luck varying and manipulating that which caused the flatness, Arwin.
Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. And when we do, it'll be the end of the world.
No,
Isn't
absolutely.
that like?
Go on, John.
I was gonna say, isn't that like coming up with a cause for entropy or a cause for time? You know, it's
Yes.
kind
Yes,
of
it is. Yes.
like a God claim.
Yes. Where did it all begin? What's the beginning of the entropy increase? How does it all start? Yes, this will lead you to the ontological primitives and the question of whether everything came out of nothing or there was a creator. That's where this leads. Yes, absolutely correct.
Yeah, but those are all phenomena, right? Those, it seems logical that those would have causes. Just the Earth being flat or being a globe would just be the Earth being flat or being a globe. It wouldn't really have a cause because it just is.
Yeah, whatever. That's total cop out. Make a claim.
Earth's flat. Disprove me.
Yeah, but that's not even a claim anymore. It's obviously and observably flat.
Exactly.
The extraordinary
That's
claim
exactly
is
our
that it's
point.
not. The extraordinary claim is that it's spherical.
Well, Earth itself is a phenomenon, is it?
No.
Like a shoe.
No, it's not. A concrete noun
What do you
again.
mean, no?
It's just a concrete noun.
Oh boy.
Earth being here is not a phenomenon.
Tree being there is not a phenomena. Leaves falling from the tree would be a phenomena. Tree, concrete noun. Earth, concrete noun. Phenomena, something occurring.
Yeah, Neil, I would say what led to Earth being here, whatever that may be. Yeah, that would be a phenomenon. But just the Earth being here, no, it's just the Earth here. That's
Right.
it.
Cue the just so stories about Thea smashing into a presupposed spherical Earth at a glancing blow and the debris forming the moon, which we later travelled to. Yeah?
Don't forget Athea.
It's just stories. It's not cause and effect. It's not phenomena being caused by variation of presumed cause. That's not what we're dealing with.
Neil, maybe you're trying to say that the Earth being here is phenomenal. Maybe that's what you're trying to say, but it's not a phenomenon.
Just to add to the Thea
Wait.
story, I've been writing a paper that I'm going to try to submit about how life also was transferred with Thea, so that they can kick the can down the road with that as well.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. See, Arwin, do you want some tips? This is how you make your €5 million.
What? Now, I wanted to ask about phenomenon. You know, for something to be viable within a scientific hypothesis, it has to be a phenomenon that can be manipulated and varied, right? But that doesn't make all phenomenon the same, right? Because the lights in the sky, they are definitely phenomenon, right? We just can't really vary and manipulate them in order for them to classify for science. But
No,
they're still phenomena. So could we call the Earth a phenomenon?
No.
We could.
Hold on. Just convoluted two things. Stick with what you first stated, which was about the stars. Yes, you were going really well until you were like, well, no, we can't science it. Yeah, you can. Any phenomena can be scienced, right? And the problem you'll find is that it's really hard to do science, because what happens most of the time when you do science, Arwin? So in this case, we're going to take your example. You've got the stars. And you're going to say, what causes that effect? We're just going to use a blanket statement. The stars, that's the phenomenon of the stars. Yeah? What causes that effect?
That's a what is question, though, isn't it?
No, what causes them to occur? looking out my window now, no stars. Later there will be stars. Something's happened. Stars. That's a phenomenon. It's no problem there. Let's just move past that. Anyway, so we're going to study those. Well, you can formulate a hypothesis. I can say if chicken curry, then stars. That's my alternative hypothesis. And I've got a null. If chicken curry, not stars. Yeah? That's my null hypothesis. So I eat chicken curry. Yeah? And what happens? Which gets validated?
The cause of stars is chicken curry.
No, I eat chicken curry and the null gets validated because it's not the cause. So I've ruled that out. Chicken curry doesn't cause the stars. Well, isn't that
It
joyous?
is science, but it's shit science. But it's the only level of science you can actually do, which is to validate the null, which is just basically proving the obvious. Because fundamentally, to do science on something, you need to know what it is. You then to have some reason, thought, and deductive, abductive even reasoning, moment of genius for you to apply what is the cause of that. But fundamentally, you've got to know what it is. Before I can look at a fire over there and go, oh, there's combustion, that's why it's burning, yeah? I need to know it's a fire and what a fire is. I've only got a light in the sky and physicality assumption bias.
But you can still science
What about...
it. Just one more example that's less farcical. So if you say, I think magnetism causes the stars, you go, okay. All you then need to do is vary and manipulate magnetism and cause that effect. Now, it doesn't have to be the effect actually up in the sky. You just have to cause a star to appear by way of magnetism. Vary magnetism, cause the effect of stars. You've then established that magnetism causes starlight. Yeah? But more likely what will happen is you'll vary magnetism and nothing will happen. You'll validate the null.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. All you do is not very progressive science. You kind of rule out the obvious. But so when you've got the star in a jar, that's a good example. I could create a star in a jar, but all I've done is create a star in a jar. What I can't do is say that's how a star is, because I can't say that that thing up there is the same thing, because I can't say what it is yet, because I can't. It's intangible at the moment. So I can't really.
It's a nice correlation
of any use science.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a nice correlation, but I've always had a problem with that. Oh, this is what we're looking at when we're looking at stars because it looks like this. It's like, it looks like that, but how do we know that that's what it is? I've always had a problem with that solar luminescence
Your
thing.
causation from something that you don't know what it is.
What about
We're not a very good cult.
something easy?
We're not a.
Where'd the scientific method come from? Didn't man
Hold on,
make
Neil.
up
There's
the
two people trying to
scientific
get
method?
through each other, and you've joined in to make it three. One or other, either skeptical or John. Who's going to go first?
It was me, actually.
FEEG.
Not
Go
skeptical.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. I was going to say, what about something easy like rainfall, for example? Like, we're told they know the cause of rainfall, but scientifically, how do you go around proving the cause of rainfall?
You induce the effect.
And have they done that? Have scientists induced the effect
Yeah.
of rainfall?
Yeah. Water vapor condensing. Yeah, that's definitely validatable by science. A cause and effect relationship that you can induce by varying and manipulating that which you assume caused the effect. Absolutely. Yes.
But
And
they're
the
not
same-
doing it like with the clouds or the actual rainfall itself. They're replicating the idea, but they're not manipulating
No,
the cause
no.
of the actual effect.
Here they are. You can cause that effect. You can cause the effect of clouds condensing into rain and falling back down. You can cause that effect. Anyway, my point is that you can do it with rain. You can't do it with stars. No one's causing that effect on any scale. No one's doing something to cause the effect of stars in any small or large scale. Nobody is doing that. But you could. It's absolutely within the purview. Is that the right word? Purview of science. Remit. That's the word.
I think your chicken curry example is better because if you don't approach it gingerly, you could foul it up.
Adam and I have discussed this a couple of years ago, right? Where does the genius in science lie? Well, it's in the logic that takes you to your assumed cause to then validate it by way of experimentation. But to get to that, that's the genius. That's where your quote-unquote scientist, that's where the genius comes in. Because I can list off endless things that I can put through the method, perfectly valid too, that don't cause the effect. And time again, that's what I'll have happen. I'll validate null after null after null, so it wasn't that, so it wasn't that, so it wasn't that. Well, that rules that out then, and I can go on forever. Where does the genius come in? When someone uses the logic, by looking around them at the things that are happening, to hone in on what they think might cause it, to only then validate it. That's the genius. Now, am I going to be able to do that? No. Does it mean that the person who's actually performing the test, is the genius in that scenario? No. The genius is the one who formulates the hypothesis, the alternative specifically. The person who comes up with the assumed cause, not yet validated, and goes forth to vary it and validate it. That's genius.
Well, in my example, your answer was a validation of condensation, not rainfall.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Okay, what's your point, though? Are you saying this isn't science or isn't capable of science? Because if so...
Well, I'm saying with this specific example of rainfall, whoever came up with the cause didn't do it scientifically.
I think
that would be...
if I could address that, yeah, you're probably right in its technical sense. If we were to say with regards to rainfall in creation, maybe we don't scientifically understand all of the components, so we don't have a completely comprehensive theory. But with regards to certain of the more basic functions, we do have scientific evidence for that, and it's demonstrable. But could we say that
I agree with that.
we understand rainfall within creation? No, I think that would be wrong, because we don't even know what the containment is and how it functions. So, and that will play a component. So.
Sure, but equally, just to follow on from that, my friend, when Quantum Eraser gives an example of boiling water, what's the cause of the boiling water? I don't think, I'm not sure, you might, but I don't think if you went Google searching for the person who validated experimentally that heat causes boiling water, it's just a crude example. Doesn't mean it's not valid. I'll stick to for your benefit.
Like Adam said.
Right, I'm going to take the W and just take the L and just say, okay, my example's not as good as Quantum Eraser's. In future, I'll stick to boiling water rather than rainfall. How's that?
Yeah, I agree with what Adam said, because when I say rainfall, it sounds simple, but it's all the mechanics of how the clouds are formed and how the water is condensed from the cloud. All that is a process rather than just the simple condensation, right?
Agreed. It would end up being part of a theory if I've oversimplified it. And indeed, if someone was studying that, they'd start with experimental validity for why water moves upwards in the first place when heat is applied. That would be your cause. Then it would move on in terms of experimentation on other aspects to form theories in terms of the water cycle. Now, that may or may not have been done, and it isn't really relevant to my point in terms of what you're going to validate with astrophysicists' methodologies of stars and their stories. But yeah, your point's still valid. I will just take it on the chin. You're right.
We're not a very productive cult. We need a story that we all believe and follow to be a cult. I'm ashamed of all of us right now.
Sorry, what? I was paying attention to the chat for a second. You're ashamed of what now?
We're not a very good cult.
It's about honesty of reply, isn't it, really? And whilst the point we were making was valid, actually, with regards to the question and the way it was phrased, if you're going to pick rainfall, whilst it does, as was cited, sound simple, if you're going to be honest, actually, it's probably the most complex thing you could have picked. Within that, there are certain components, though. So to me, it's just about answering the question honestly.
Perfect. But now let's segue back onto Neil, who started this whole thing, this whole ball rolling. When it comes to the propaganda that we're punted from astrophysicists, Neil, wouldn't you recognise that it's not giving any scientific validity to their just so stories about sky vacuums, Narnia? You don't have to pay any attention anymore. It's not really worthy of your time. Or at least I personally don't feel that that sort of propaganda is worthy of my time. And it has almost no effect on me. Even though I do a show about it, it probably has less effect on me than your general Joe Normie.
Yeah.
But I wanted that to lead on, because in the pre-show you were saying, where does flat Earth go next? And I'm like, what are you talking about? The Earth didn't change, hasn't unfolded or folded up. So what do you mean? It's an internal thing. It's you and how you perceive this world and how you go about your general
their
life.
arguments. Their arguments. Where can their arguments go from here? We've destroyed everything. When you left yesterday, we talked about it a little more. It's like a zombie movie, but in the zombie movies, you cut off their head and they're gone. It's like, how many times can we cut off their heads and they're still walking? And it's like a joke now.
Yeah, they've got nowhere to go, Neil. You're right. But that's their problem. Share your pain, fundies.
Correct. It's their problem. But I like to speculate where they would go next. I think they're going to go to space. And they're going to stay there because it's safe for them there. Even though we destroy it, it's safe for them there.
They should listen to Arwen. That's really where they should go next. Or Baldwin.
Okay. Right, Adam, you've got your...
Wait, what?
Hold on a second. You've got your composite up. Did you want to go?
Yeah, it was just... I'm not sure if it's aired yet, whether it was in the after show yesterday, but we were discussing this picture that the roofies brought to the table. And Alwyn raised a really good point in terms of left to right curvature. We're always talking across the z-axis in terms of this hidden stuff. But he raised the point, and we were chatting in the after show, and I went and did a little bit of research identifying this point over here that looks like an island. It's not. It's a peak on the mainland, and the farthest peak over here, which I think I found pretty well across this stretch, and that came out to be 118 miles. So I did a little bit of maths just to reify it into a ball. I made a few assumptions. First being, if you've got, I like to deal in metrics. So we're looking at roughly 200 kilometers in the full picture, because there's a little bit extra. So if we take that it's 200 kilometers, that equates to 20,000 pixels in the image. I'm using roofie units. And in doing so, we looked at the width of it, and we say, well, from center point to any to the left or right edge is therefore 100 kilometers. So if we take that as the top of our ball, and we've got 100 kilometers of drop to apply to the edge, doing a little bit of maths, that worked out to be 78.4 pixels. So I've then applied that change to the original. Obviously, that's the original image, and then I've applied it in Photoshop just to put that curve in. And it's not spectacular, but you could see that it is noticeable. The bottom one's still the flat one, look, but if you see the curvature, it's more noticeable if you look at the white at the top. That will show you the amount of curve that's been incorporated. So 0 at the point of observation, and down to those 78.4 pixels there for the drop that you would expect to see if it was a ball. That's how it would look, not the flat plane. And that's just taking into account and perverting, obviously, the left to right is not put into account the z-axis bend, but it's just to show what the point Alwyn raised. There you go.
Thank you very much, Adam. Anybody want to make comment on this current observation composite that's been put together? Anyone from Discord? Any comments? If not, if you're watching this live, then this evening on my second channel, subscribe today, Nathan Oakley channel, will be yesterday's Uncut and After show where this got discussed extensively. So be here or be sphere, 9 PM UK time on my second channel, which is Nathan Oakley, for Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After show. I did actually give it a title.
Relate to our naked eye
Again?
and the way we see across the horizon that we see.
If we were on a sphere, it would obviously be spherical. Also, although Adam has gone along and begged the question and used their bastardization of angular representations by way of pixel measurements, no theodolites, no sextants, no measurements of any angles, measurements of angles of things that can be seen, which include their actual heights that can't be seen. It's just a complete convoluted cluster screw of nonsense. Anyway, Adams used that convoluted cluster screw of nonsense to derive what begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator would say would be the left to right curvature in this panorama, a la, or as per the what's the term, advanced section on the Metabunk curve calculator. However, there's no perspective being taken into consideration. All of these calculations, by way of pixels I might add, have got nothing to do with how we actually view the world at all. Correct, Adam?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I did enjoy writing my new units. PX is a new unit form I've written down. It's exactly that. It is. I mean, my critique of Riff is it's just, you can't do this. In terms
Can you
of
zoom in?
trying to take
Adam, at some point, did you say roofie unit?
Yeah, roofie unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you zoom in a
thought I
second,
heard
Adam? Can you just zoom in?
Which bit?
Any.
Just in the middle. Or I'll go to the edge because you'll see more extremity.
So while Adam's zooming in on that, a quick question, Adam. So if for the sake of argument you had an aeroplane in this picture just above the mountain line, yeah? And it was 1 pixel of aeroplane, would it be the same value as a pixel right near the ground where the water appears to meet the land?
No.
No?
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, it would.
What do you mean,
be
no?
very different. This pixel up here would represent a much. The pixel, do it the other way around. The pixel down here would be more compressed. So in 1 pixel would be a lot more meters than 1 pixel up here would have.
But surely the value doesn't change though, right? It's the same, it's just pixels, isn't it?
That's why they're roofie units, because
Roofie units, yeah. Dumb man units, we should call them, for a dumb man.
It's that criticism that orthographic numbers don't just translate whether you convert into roofie units of pixels or not into a photographic, into an optical image. It's just not.
Just stupid, really. Just
Right,
what a stupid person would do. Yeah, well, in conclusion, Ruhip is thick, and his application of pixel values is just stupid. I mean, really stupid. Hope you're listening, Ruhip, because we're laughing at you. How stupid you are. Yeah, enjoy. Thanks again, Adam. Excellent stuff.
I must say, just like Adam talked about the rainfall with these 2 pictures, Adam always comes in due time.
In due time, ha ha ha.
I was struggling on that.
Nobody else got that?
Yeah, I was struggling. It took you to repeat it. Yeah, very.
Credit where credit's due.
Oh, it was Alwyn's idea to do it. I'd not thought, thought to stick the bend in, but I weren't expecting that much actually, that many roofie units. So it was quite noticeable because that whole thing is only like 1,200 units high, so it's quite a decent chunk. You just missed it, Bri.
No. Not at all.
I got it, man. I got it.
Hello. Hi, Brian. I'm sure you've come in for this very reason, right? I'm not going to just segue away now Brian's joined. Hello.
Hey Nathan, hey Adam, everyone, and everyone. Yeah, no, I was just looking at it there. I was watching it on the live show. The thing about that is, what we even see there with that curve is not what we would see, because that's only from left to right. In reality, there'd be a huge amount of those peaks that aren't there. So it would look even more bizarre. Like if people want to, what I'm saying is that the top image is not a representation of what it would really look like in comparison to the bottom image, because you're only seeing the left to right curvature. You're not seeing the front on.
I said that what I've done there is pervert the left and right put there, but what's not been applied is what I did do on the Blackpool Swan is by reducing the mountain is put that Z application of curvature, which obviously lowers the peaks to their correct geometric position if they were on a ball, as opposed to what we're seeing here. Yeah, so on this has only gone left to right, not across the Z.
Yeah, no, I obviously know you know that, and everyone else on the panel knows that, but it's for the audience, for people who maybe knew, some Glober could show them that and say, well, one looks very much the same as the other, and you can see how you could be mistaken that it's flat and it's refraction. No, in reality, the top image, most of those peaks, like that Mont Pouget I was showing yesterday, that's 1,410 feet, that would only be 132 feet of that. 132 feet is all of that you would see. You know, it's like on the globe model. So in reality, what we see there, even though in that small picture, I'm looking at that on a very small screen, and that's a very small picture, and I can see the differences between the two. But the full differences would be way more bizarre, just for the audience. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I did attempt to go through that in terms of how Adam's using the roofie units to take a pixel value to then ignore all aspects of perspective and take the values from the advanced tab in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking earth curve calculator, which hopefully peppers it with enough disclaimers for anybody who's reasonably competent and been following along for a few days at the least to know what we're talking about.
I think maybe just for YouTube purposes, then this is a parody, just so people are clear. Not a claim by me.
Yes, exactly. Just in case anyone comes along and says, "Oh right, actually Adam did a wonderful job," I can hear it now. It's like, no, we're taking the piss out of how you're begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking earth curve calculator has got a per pixel value of drop ascribed by an idiot, and this is how it would turn out. Now, it doesn't represent what the picture's showing. It doesn't have these drops in pixels, but these drops in pixels are one aspect of a whole formula that relies on an R value we've debunked. So none of these values are important at all, especially the feet and inches values of mountains. No offence, Brian, I get your point, and you did disclaim on a globe, so I'm not going to moan at you. But those feet and inches values don't change with distance now, do they? What's that? Oh, we'll look at the perspective values based on what it'll be on a flat plane, because that's the only way we can measure them. I mean, derive them from the picture. Yeah, what a crock of crap. This is dead on arrival like everything they present at the moment. Oh yeah, where's R? Let's just cut this off at the head. Where's R? The values you've told us for how many feet and inches or pixels of drop there's going to be, that's all based on R. We debunked it. So bye-bye. Every single claim that we're discussing here is all moot. Just a bit of fun to take the piss out of Roofy for being a thicko.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've got me. Without R, I couldn't have done the maths to figure out how much to bend it by a pre-assumed R value, which is what I had to do because I had to work out the amount. So.
Nathan, maybe for people who are just tuning in or haven't been paying attention to the show for years, what do you want to tell them why you call the calculator what you do? Just
sure. Yeah, begging the question. Well, it assumes its outcome. It's in the title. It's called Earth Curve Calculator. Oh, so we're automatically going to assume we're on a sphere Earth then. So the begging the question. Proof of nothing. It's a model. It's a side profile that you will never encounter. You never see the side of your own head. It proves nothing. Models aren't reality. Begging the question. Proof of nothing. Perspective hijacking. because we've got a 1.2 measurement, 1.22 measurement, that claims that Earth's sphere edges will block based on geometry, and yet we've got a 1.22 measurement that's going to give us optical diffraction limits. Well, that's not coincidence. It's not a coincidence also that in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, they remove aspects of perspective by putting it into side profile, what we call Muppet vision, or orthographic view. That would be to say that you will see the side of your own head. Sometimes they draw an eyeball on the left-hand side of the page or a stick man on the left-hand side of the page, and then they tell you how that is representative of a photograph. Well, when you next see that audience member, ask yourself this. When have you ever seen the side of your own head for a 90-degree angle, potentially thousands of miles away, to you taking the picture? You don't. All that does is remove all aspects of perspective, with feet and inches values for targets. So this 100-foot building will be 100 foot on the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator representation in orthographic view, with you on the left and a line drawn to you in a 100-foot building. Doesn't matter if it's a million miles between the two. It hijacks perspective and calls it Earth curve. So that's why it's got that title.
Well, you know what they say when you say that you're begging the question? They say, oh, we already know that it's a globe.
Yeah. In other words, the defense to you're automatically assuming your outcome is, no, I'm going to automatically assume my outcome. That's their defense. That's the magic trick. That's why we're indoctrinated into believing we're on a sphere from birth. So it's hardwired for anybody to beg the question. And for those of the people who are newbies that come here and go, well, we already know it's a sphere. No, that's a begging the question fallacy. You need to prove it. Well, we must have been able to have proven it. It's the way the world is. So obviously we've got proof for it. No, that's the reason we're here.
Yeah, and when you're talking to anti-flat earthers and they say they know it's a ball already, but you're asking them how they know, and then they're saying they know because they know, that's nonsensical.
Wait, it's begging the question.
Yet that's the reasoning that most people will have. That I've been told that. Like, we know it's a ball because we know it's a ball. And I'm like, and that makes sense to you? And they're like, yeah, because we know. And how do you know you know? Oh, because we know.
Substitute in to make farcical. Substitute in unicorns. Unicorns are real. How do you know unicorns are real? Because I already know. Well, how do you already know? Because I already know. Everybody already knows. Adding an appeal to consensus. Everyone already knows unicorns are real.
No.
Well, are you a bit stupid that you don't know unicorns are real?
Hold on. The ancient Greeks knew it was a sphere thousands of years ago. Haven't you heard the news?
How'd they know?
But what did they observe?
Yeah, what did they measure?
Doesn't matter. It's the ancient
Oh,
Greeks.
that doesn't matter.
And why did Christopher Columbus miss the boat? Why did he have to also find out thousands of years later?
That was good. You missed the boat.
Listen, the ancient Greeks said it. It's law. Don't you know that?
Law? What, they decide how nature behaves because they say it's so?
Yes, it's the ancient Greeks.
I see. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Massive thank you to you already smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!